My name is Peter. I'm Dscoop's Executive Director, and I have the pleasure of welcoming you to episode 4 already of the series The Link. Just a quick note, right? So why are we doing this? Why are you here? Why are we here? And the purpose for this session really is with Frank and with the others that we've had and the others that we're doing, is to encourage dialogue about collaboration. We know it's a competitive industry, but collaboration is such an important concept, but also such an important opportunity, I think, for all our members. And the aim is to enable those meaningful conversations between you, our Dscoop members. And I picked up this little thing from our keynote in Indy, Priya Parker. There's a Japanese saying that says "ichigo ichi-e," and I apologize for my pronunciation, but it translates to one meeting, one moment in your life that will never happen again. This is one of those. So let's make the most of it together, and have a great conversation. So a couple of practical things. I do have to do some of the housekeeping. You can control your own microphone, you control your own camera. The first part of the conversation is going to be about 30 minutes. Afterwards is Q&A. If you have a question, the controls below the video, you'll see a couple of things. You can click your microphone, mute, unmute, camera on and off. There's a raise hand feature. If you press that, it will pop up on my screen and I can see that you have a question. I'll bring you on and you can ask your question. Next is the emoji reaction feature, which has been discovered by someone, so perfect. If you hear something that you like, thumbs up, you can actually click it repetitively. So you can also shower Frank in thumbs ups. If there's a few different ones, even if you click the 3 dots, so feel free to use that as we go through the session. You see the chat box on the right. So the beauty of everyone here is that the chat is persistent. So after the event, the chat will be accessible in your messages section on the platform, only for you that attended live. If you didn't attend live, you don't have the chat. So feel free to swap messages, etc. in there. And then all the way to the right is the list of the members that are currently in this meeting. You can click on each other's profile, and you can also then engage in a private chat if you would want to do so. And then because this is a conversation and there's a significant Q&A part, and some of you already know what's going to happen now, I am promising the person that will be selected asking the best question a Dutch pack of the famous stroopwafels. You'll understand when you get them that they're a Dutch delicacy, not delicacy, but they're a Dutch treat. So wherever you are, if Frank selects you as having asked the best question, the pack is going to come your way and you will get it. I checked with each one of the previous 3 episodes. They've all been delivered. So they arrived. Rosemary Bryan got a pack. I think you had a little, he was kind enough to share a little bit with you. And the others have received it as well. Even one actually all the way to California. Okay, so I think that's all that I needed to announce. So let's make this another memorable session and then share your emoji appreciation for the real attraction of today. And that is Frank Arostegui, Executive Vice President, Sales and Marketing at American Litho. Welcome, Frank.
Thank you, Peter. Appreciate it, and honored to be here. And thank you for thinking of me. Good morning, everybody.
Well, excellent. Hey, Frank, you've been with American Litho for a while. Can you give a little bit, your role and give a bit of overview on the company?
Sure, absolutely. Sure. So this April will be 11 years for me here at American Litho. How I landed here, generally like every other position I found myself by happenstance, right? There was no direction. I just got a call from the owners of the company. We're a privately held company, Mike Fontana, who really is the visionary behind the company. So this is just over 11 years ago. So at that time, American Litho was really a commercial printer, what I like to call a hang and bang shop, right? A job shop. So at that time, as we all know, commercial printing was sort of moving into that commodity space, right? Not a lot of high value in and of itself. So he had asked me to come aboard to build or help build a direct mail company. And at that time, the commitment was to build a $20 million division of American Litho as a direct mail company. Happy to tell you today, so give you a starting place and where we're at today to give you a sort of a bench line or baseline. So in 11 years ago, we were an $80 million company, primarily commercial printing. We finished last year at 240 million, and I would tell you 90% of that is direct mail related. So we've had a lot of success, a lot of luck in terms of developing and growing our direct mail platform, our clients, and our business. So it's been a wild ride, and I'll go even a little further back. So I started my career in the printing world about 30 years ago. Had a full head of hair, and I was about 50 pounds lighter than I am today. So this is a tough business, but it's a blast. It really is a blast. So that just kind of gives you a little bit of a flavor of what's happened here at American Litho, and a big part of that success, quite honestly, are the people we work with, the teams. It really comes down to the people. The technology that we've invested in, the equipment we've invested in, and what we've really seen, knock on wood, happy to tell you guys that we've got the 3 page wide presses in the back of the building. We broke another record in February. So just short of 160 million pages in February. So it continues to grow. Very exciting, and we're doing some kind of unique things with our clients, and it all comes down to communication and collaboration.
Yeah, cool. And just a sense of, you talked about like 240 million. What's sort of the size in number of people that are at the facility or at American Litho? Sorry.
Yeah. So the building I'm in right now is roughly 320,000 square foot. We've been fortunate to expand over the last couple of years. So about 2 miles from here, we have another facility that's 120,000 square foot, and right down the road, another 50,000. So all said and done, about 500,000 feet under roof, 900 employees. And as you can imagine, through COVID and all the challenges we all had, it was pretty difficult to get enough people to run the equipment. But those seem to be behind us a little bit. We've done some outstanding things as it relates to team building and motivating and rewarding, whether that was raises or gift cards for the best performance on a particular shift or a piece of equipment. So it's been a wild ride, especially the last 4 years with COVID. So, knock on wood, we keep moving forward, right?
Yep. Yep. And just sort of also understanding on the technology side, you mentioned the page wide presses that you have in the back of the building. You do end to end, so anything, the finishing, everything else is done in house. But any other technologies you're running, like for production, print manufacturing?
We do, and that's a great question. So I think a big part of our success is, first and foremost, we started focusing on program work versus jobs, right? How do we go out and really work with our clients to put our arms around their current programs, whether it's weekly, monthly, quarterly, et cetera. So, what then happens is, through a discovery process, is what is it that you're trying to achieve? What are your objectives? And probably more importantly, what are your pains? What's causing you pain? I hate to use that old question, but what keeps you up at night, right? It's a little salesy, it's a little cheesy, but it gets the point across, right? So if we can get our clients to open up, here's my challenge, whether it's cycle time, whether it's using data, how do I use data? How do I make sure that it's accurate? So from a technology standpoint, we've invested heavily in what we call our Analytics platform, which is predictive modeling. A lot of technologies relates to geofencing based on longitude, latitude, mobile texting, digital display ads, all of those kinds of things. And what I'm seeing, and I would imagine the rest of you guys, as you talk to your clients, is that here, especially in the States, postage just keeps going up, and up 2 times a year. So what's happening is our clients, their pain right now is, I need to get to a certain circ. I need to get, in terms of dollars and converts, new clients, if you will. But the budget is the budget. So how do we help them achieve those numbers as it relates to new clients via acquisition when our counts are going down? Well, through data. And the more personalization we can put on the piece, the greater response, the greater return on investment. So we're kind of talking more along the lines as we move forward based on, these postage increases don't seem to be stopping anytime in the near future, with another 9% here in August. Mm. So what we're really kind of trying to take our clients down the path of the rifle approach versus the shotgun approach. So from a technology, the press is, of course, amazing. and I'll kind of paint a little bit of a picture. So what we can do if the client chooses is we can talk about really that customer journey. So how do we help them take their clients through the customer journey? And really, I think at the end of the day, through the technology and services that we've implemented over the last couple of years, is let's look at that house list. Let's build a profile. Let's understand who these people are. Not only who they are, but how to communicate to them, because everybody's got different preferences on how they like to be communicated to. What I will say, and I'll reiterate, is that we know direct mail truly is that driving force behind response. And I'll get to that in just a minute. But to kind of paint a picture, give you a little example. So we did a project for a brick and mortar ice cream store across the country. So same thing, we backed up, help us understand who your clients are. We built a predictive model. So we said these folks within these areas, within the radius of these stores across the country, feel like your best customers. So we help them identify who to target. So going back to, instead of that spray and pray or that shotgun approach, let's hone that in and let's make sure we're talking to the right people. Not only the right people, but let's make sure that that message is specific to their interests, targeted relevant messaging, right? So and I joke, but if that information was out there that lactose intolerant, we're not going to send them an ice cream mailer, right? And I joke a little bit, I go a little bit far, but my point in saying that is let's make sure it's the right audience, right? So what we were able to do is, in this particular case, we did an A/B split where we mailed. We identified those people, and 50% of that list, what we did is we put an actual geofence around their homes. And the reason we did that was everybody's got one of these in their pocket, right? Or close to them, is to identify that device within the home. And I'll get back to that for a second. And the reason, not only to identify the device, but also to hit them with digital display ads, mobile texting prior to the mail hitting the mailbox. So I call that our priming the mailbox strategy. So you're building awareness. It's another contact point, another touch point, if you will. And what we saw was this amazing spike in interest because we attached, of course, as you can imagine, a pearl or a link where they could go and either convert and or just check out the product, right? Whether they like this flavor or that flavor, that kind of thing. So we saw an enormous amount of activity as it relates to that pre-mailbox before that catalog hit home. So then what we did is we put a geofence around the local store that was roughly 3 miles away from the homes of the folks that we mailed it to. Now I go back to that, we've already identified that device. We already know we mailed it to those folks. We've got the geofence around their home to do that. Now we have the geofence around that brick and mortar. So what we were able to demonstrate, once that catalog hit the mail, there was a spike of traffic based on that device crossing the threshold of that brick and mortar. So we're not, in this case, we were not tied to their CRM system. So I can't tell you if they made a purchase. And I think we talked about this a while ago, Peter, but if I walk into an ice cream store, I don't know about you guys, I'm buying some ice cream. I'm not there to look. So this gives you an idea of, all these technologies and channels that are available to you to help the client understand, okay, we've got the right folks. We drove them to the store. It's up to them to make that inference. Now, not only do we have the device information and all the tracking, now we can hit them again after the event, right? To hopefully drive them back into the store or drive them online to make a purchase. So these are all the things that we've heavily been investing in as part of our Analytics suite of services. Not everybody can use those services because some of these accounts that we're working on are massive, and they have teams of 100, 200, 300 analytics people and the mobile team, the online team, the email team, and unfortunately, in some of these cases, we find that there's silos. They don't really work great with one another because this is my budget. You're not taking my budget to mail more. I don't know if you guys come across that, but it does happen. So again, as I back up, that's kind of the path we've been taking, is instead of sort of just show up and say, hey, we can do these all these great things for you, is, well, let's take a step back and help us understand who you're trying to talk to, who are your clients, how are you doing it, and really look at that strategy and do it much more what I call it a rifle approach versus a shotgun approach.
Yeah. So, but you said, like, okay, the direct mail piece is an important part in that, but there's a huge amount of new technologies and new knowledge and new things that you guys are doing. I mean, the company name is American Litho. I apologize, I'm Dutch, right? So I would associate litho with lithography and traditional printing. But there's way much more. How did you? So how do you, as a printer, get into that, like, very sophisticated technology and services?
Great question. And just for everybody on the line, we've talked about changing the name of the company because of litho, right? We don't want to be just a printer, but I'm not the owner, so I can't make that change. But what I would tell you is that you're almost forced to, quite honestly, if you're not investing in these technologies and new ways, if you will. I hate to say it, we're going to see more consolidation and more companies that look like, feel like us, or printers closing the doors. We have to be a true partner, not just a vendor to our customers and our clients. And the reason we got into a lot of these technologies is, as an example, because this postage just keeps going up in terms of increasing. And just to kind of throw a number at you, postage represents 4 to 5 times the cost of manufacturing. So postage here in the States is a pass-through. There's really not much we can do about it other than to ensure that we have the best freight plan or postal optimization in making sure that we're helping our clients take advantage of the postal promotions. But the challenge, and I go back to the technology for a second, is the folks in the C-suite, they see these numbers and they say, hey, we got this response or this customer on a Google, right? They Googled my information and they made that transaction. What's happening is, unfortunately, you're getting that last click attribution, not really understanding what drove the consumer to the site in the very first place, right? So how do we do that? Through QR codes, through pearls, those technologies where we're able to track back in real time, longitude, latitude, where did they scan from, at what time of the day did they scan from, did they take action? And if they did take action, how do we retarget them, whether it's a digital display ad or another direct mail piece, preferably, and I'm sure you guys agree with me, we want another direct mail piece to go out. But, these are the things that real customers, they're so hungry for this technology and these solutions that force is the wrong word, but it makes good business sense to invest in these technologies and these digital presses and enable our clients to maximize the data points that they have around their clients.
Yeah. And then you've also acquired probably knowledge, whether that's brought in from the outside or nurtured and developed inside, is around handling data, right? That takes a huge amount of knowledge as well.
It really is amazing, and I will tell you, I'm very fortunate to work with the clients that I do because they share a lot of information. So you learn in terms of what's working for them. And I'll go back to, again, the postal promotions and increases in postage. So we've done a lot of testing as it relates to tactile and emerging tech, as you can imagine. But what we're seeing when you put enhanced UV on a piece or a foil stock or a glitter or sand grid, I mean, the options are really limitless in terms of what kind of texture we can put on the outside of the piece. We're seeing these enormous increases in response rates. And sometimes that can be a challenging conversation. Well, how much? and you have to move the needle to say that's really not the price. The price of the piece, the cost per piece, is not really what you should be focused on. You should be focused on the cost per acquisition. How much does it cost me to acquire that individual, that new customer, if you will? So if we can demonstrate, yes, the cost per piece might go up because of a coating or stock or what have you, but I got much greater return on my investment. Again, it just makes good business sense. And I can share, we have one of our financial companies that we do work with. We put two textures on the outside of their envelope: a soft touch and an enhanced UV. That first mailing, they got over a 40% increase in response rates. So these things really work, and there's a real psychology around the tactile, the neuroscience of touch, if you guys are familiar. And if you haven't, watch that I think it's a 9-part series on what was on PBS. Dr. David Engelman talks a lot about touch, and that when you feel how it makes you feel that it's more valuable, so you're prone to open that piece up and engage with it. Now, having said that, another hard lesson that I've learned is that those types of approaches are not going to work in every industry. As an example, insurance. I don't know about you guys, but if you get a really expensive looking piece, what does your mind say? Boy, this insurance is going to cost me a lot of money. So that doesn't work, right? So it just depends on who you're talking to, the vertical market, the types of companies, and of course the demographics, who you're mailing to, right?
Yeah. So these types of things and these projects, and also bringing in new technologies and getting involved into way different conversation with clients than before. Does it also change the dynamics of the team that you work with within the company? I mean, bringing in, like when you talk about touch, that's something that you can read about, right, and learn about it, but then you have to internalize it and be able to sell it to a customer.
That's a really great question. So, over the last 4 years, especially, what I've seen is where there was a team of maybe 10 or 12 or 20, whatever that number might have been. Now it's 2 or 3. So in many cases, our customers just don't have the time to really explore all of these different options or educate themselves on what's happening in the market, what's working, what's not working. And if we can be that resource, you are able to get that time, right? Because they see value in it at the end of the day. If, of course, knock on wood, the piece performs, right? So it's a really interesting dynamic. Not only am I seeing on this side of the table from a sales perspective that so many salespeople just aren't investing in their skills, in what's happening in the industry, and taking the time to really fully understand what works. Now, on the other side of the table, from a consumer standpoint, the training that used to take place, the educational series that used to take place, either it's not there or they just don't have the time to fully engage to sort of learn what's out there. So it's really our job to educate our customers, our clients, right? Make sense?
Yeah. And how do you do that? Educating your customers? Do you
Well,
host them at your facility, or how does it work?
we have done that. As a matter of fact, we've been talking about re-engaging. So we used to do what we call American Litho University. And we did that about once a quarter pre-COVID. And it was just a phenomenal experience. You can sit across the table in a client's conference room and explain all of these things. But when they're in the facility and they see how a press is webbed up, or how we split it into ribbons, or all of these data points. So what we used to do, and I'm hoping we get to do this again here shortly, is we would invite 10 to 20 clients in from across the country, fly them in, spend 2 days with us, and we'd have different sessions. So again, based on the level of education and experience, if you will, the courses were really sort of custom tailored based on the audience coming in. So if we had pros in here, we would of course take them down to the press room because it's just cool, just a cool factor. But we would talk at a much higher level. If we had younger folks in, like we talked about the college kids, the students, and we had that program as well, where we would take the kids from college, COD, College of DuPage, and bring them in, show them the press room floor, talk, hey, what do you want to do at your degree? what is it, what's out there, what's available to you. And sometimes these kids, their minds just like, wow. Print, I think we fall into these buckets, especially younger people, that, well, print is, oh, it's the sign on the wall, or it's this, or it's that. But we were able to expand, and actually we picked up a couple of young people to join our team. And that's one of the things we're doing too over here at American Litho, is to really focus on youth, right? What's that next generation going to look like, to make sure that they're educated, not only from a sales perspective, but running the presses. That's a whole different crew back there than it was 11 years ago. And what we're seeing is it's a mature industry. Most of the folks in our industry are, I'll just raise my own hand and say 50 plus, right? So we're tired. Some of us have hair, some of us don't, right? But it's been a wild ride. It really has.
Yeah. And then what's that? The impact on the business. Well, I think you started by saying how much the company has grown. So it's been a very positive experience, right? I think the journey that you've been on for the last 11, 12 years.
It has, and I talked a little bit about predictive modeling as it relates to the customers, to make sure that we're helping them target the right. We did the very same thing here. So instead of just spraying and praying and knocking on every door to hopefully get some print out of them, we've identified key vertical markets. And within those key vertical markets, we've, knock on wood, have had some success. So your financial, your insurance, your telecom, hospitality, travel and leisure, those are our top vertical markets. So we want to make sure that we're talking to the right folks at the right level within these vertical markets. And that's where the real discovery takes place. That's where the real conversation, that's where the meat of, well, before I can talk about what we do, I need to understand what are your objectives, marketing objectives, goals, etc. What are your challenges? And more importantly, what's your pain point? If we can help you from a pain standpoint, meaning I got to reduce my cost, I got to reduce my cycle time, my current control is fatigue. Well, let's dig into that. What's going on here? So, and those clients that are willing to talk about those things, challenges especially, that's where we find the most success.
Yeah. And then how do you get your clients into that collaborative mode almost, right? Because they're partnering with you. How do you bring them over to your side of the table?
I send them some Italian beefs to get, fill their belly, and then they're willing to talk to me. I joke, of course, but not everybody's willing to have those conversations. So I think you have to demonstrate some value, right? And that starts small. It's trust, right? Over time, you have to earn that trust. You have to demonstrate value. You have to demonstrate credibility. And then when you measure, you got to make sure that everything that we've talked about comes to fruition, right? So, and it could be as simple as a test job. And that's how a lot of our clients start. It's a test job to make sure that we can do what we say we do, meaning hit the dates, the quality, help them increase response rates, help them decrease cycle time, all of those things. So generally speaking, there's some sort of a small test along the way before they really truly open up about what's going on in their business. And I will give you an example of I had this one client this a couple of years ago, and he wanted to know, what is your average postage per piece? So at that time, here we are. I think it was 23 cents, 10 cents less. And that was only 4 or 5 years ago. He goes, no, well, I beat that. And I looked at him and said, I don't know how you do it, but congratulations. But what I would like to do is get my postal guy on the phone with you to really understand, how are you getting such an aggressive postage rate? So yes, his name was Randy. He said, yeah, I'd be happy to do that. So I got our director of postal logistics on and had the conversation. His name's Rob. He said the same thing to Randy. He said, I don't know how you're doing it. For us, that would be impossible. So the client said, you know what? You passed. I'm like, what do you mean we passed? He goes, I'm not getting that rate. That was a test to see if you are true to your word and you would tell me this is what it is. And that, I'm, knock on wood, happy to tell you, he's now our largest client in the building. So it's all about trust, know what you say, and building on that credibility, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. And then when you look forward, right? So now let me come back on one thing. You casually mentioned the geofencing thing, right? So and
Yeah.
I remember some time ago you had talked about that as well, and it was so intriguing. Again, as a direct mail company or a platform use, I also wrote down you call it a platform. That geofencing. I mean, how did you acquire that type of knowledge and expertise to be able to tie all of those things into that platform?
So it's actually twofold. So initially, I would tell you it was through a partner. So we had a partner
Hmm.
to help us along the way. We have since hired some very smart people to help us
Hmm.
build that technology internally. So we'll take that base and then make it or put it on steroids. And me, I couldn't tell you what they do other than
Yeah.
they make it magic, I guess. And that office is right over here. And sometimes I go, his
Mm.
name is Mahesh. I'm like, how do you do that, Mahesh? And
Yeah.
he really doesn't tell me. I'm going to tell you, but so it's a little bit of both, right? Partnership and homegrown technology.
Yeah. 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 No, totally. Um, sort of, looking into the near future. How do you see that? What sort of, the postage you mentioned that, right? That's a big challenge in your business.
It
Um,
is.
what is sort of the next thing you see happening within the direct mail industry?
Sure. It's interesting, and I think a lot about this. And what I would tell you is, and by the way, if any of you guys are open or near the facility, I know Peter, you're going to come out. Rosemary, you're always welcome.
Yeah.
You guys are always welcome to come check us out and see what we're doing here. So, it's a big shop, and in the back of that building, we've got 9 web presses. That's old technology, right? A lot of iron on the floor.
Hmm.
And the best way I could say to answer your question is that I think there's going to be an increased shift from that spray and pray, that shotgun approach, to a much more dialed in, targeted relevant messaging type approach, where we're truly helping clients go after those folks that we already know look like, feel like your very best customers. And yes, I do believe that the volumes will continue to go down, but it'll be
Hmm.
much more calculated, lack of a better word, more focused, more intentful in terms of who we advise our clients to target.
Hmm.
And then, what I would bet money that 5 years from now or 10 years from now, instead of all that iron back, I bet we've got 6 or 8 or 10 page wide presses sitting in the back versus
Yeah.
what we've got there today.
Yeah. 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 Interesting. And then if you just look back at that journey that you've gone through to today, right? So, what would you, knowing what you know today, what would you have wanted to know when you started on that expansion journey?
Good. How to meditate better. How to
Hmm.
joke. It's been a wild ride, and I think that you kind of learn through experience, kind of like I was talking about with the codings for that one financial account. But
Yeah.
when I got here 11 years ago, we didn't have one inserter on the floor, so
Hmm.
maybe I was more optimistic or maybe didn't think through before I accepted the job here. But, there's so
Yeah.
many pieces to the puzzle to become a successful company. And you asked something about, well, how does a printer end up with all this technology? And it's more than just technology. It really is what I call an enterprise platform or solution, meaning we now have the ability to walk into a client. And this came from a conversation, believe it or not. I was in New York City with another financial account, and we all deal with New York people, right? They're very colorful. Paul, I know you live in New York, but you're from the Midwest. But here's what I love about them. They'll tell you how it is, and that's what I love about working with folks on the East Coast. So I took one of their packages and I asked the gal, her name was Heather. I said, "So you print your envelope here, you print your form here, you print your insert, which they call a Schumer here, and then a buck slip." So there was four components of the package, and then they ship it to a letter shop. So I said, "You're dealing with 5 different vendors on every single project." boy, you want to talk about a hot button and a pain point like this. Yes, it's so you got to think about that when you've got to coordinate 5 different schedules, you've got to cut 5 different POs, you have to deal with 5 different personalities, all of these kinds of things. So, what in my mind after seeing that reaction and having that conversation is, if you can become this enterprise, meaning, and you can't do this for everybody, but if you can truly be that one point of contact, you can manage the entire program for them. It really relieves a lot of burden in terms of what that individual has to do. And I go back to what I said earlier. We used to have these teams of 8, 10, 12, whatever that number might be. It's 30% of that. It's 40%. It's 50. They just don't have the time to manage all of these conversations and schedules and all of these things. And they're looking for partners that can manage everything for them. That's why I just coined the phrase enterprise, right? So if I can handle really soup to nuts that entire program, and then add in value as it relates to predictive modeling and technologies and reporting and retargeting, in many cases, it just makes sense.
Yeah, you really sort of, offer a huge amount of convenience for them, right? And excellent. Yeah, cool. We are going to open. I have one more question, and then we're going to open it up for the audience to bring up their questions. So get ready for that.
Okay.
No, it's just one more question for you then, Frank, as well. What, like, a lot of it is around innovation, right? And learning new skills, and like you mentioned, the team that's doing your geofencing. How do you keep up yourself? There's a lot of new stuff you have to get through all the time, right?
You do, and I would say it's events like this. It's part of being the Dscoop community. I learn a lot, and some of these calls, sidebar. The owner of the company for 10 of us has hired a nutritionist, right? So his words to me really resonate to answer your question. Everybody's different. Everybody's on their own path and learning different things at their own speeds. So he said to me, you can share as much of your success as you like or not. But he goes, let me tell you something, because he's got decades of experience. He said, sometimes that little tidbit, that little success you might have, or that little, piece of knowledge means so much to that individual that they take that and they run with it and they learn. And I go back to that conversation I had with Heather in New York, where she held her expression. I learned just seeing that 5 seconds. I learned this is a real pain point for all of them. So how do I keep up? It's through communities like Dscoop, and I'm going to the Inkjet Summit here in April. But it's also just honest to God, rolling up your sleeves and getting on a plane and meeting with people and understanding what is it they're trying to achieve. And that's probably been my biggest learning curve, because there's many times I don't have an answer sitting there in a conference room, but I'll do the best I can to come back here, talk to the people I need to talk to, and or others that maybe don't work for American Litho that are in the industry, and what worked for you. And I just did that with Dave from Think Patent not too long ago. And he just offered some advice to me. So I think it's just communication, it's collaboration, it's being part of this community. It's many things. Read a book. I hate to say it, a lot of people just don't even read books anymore, but you never know what you're going to get, what little tidbit you're going to get out of that chapter or that book, right?
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, the Japanese quote I just used, I picked up from this book, right? So this is our keynote in Indianapolis in a couple of weeks.
That's great.
So it's one of those things. Yeah, you learn every single day. So really appreciate that. Yeah. Let's see if there anyone raise your hand if you have a question, then we can bring you up. I still have a few more to ask Frank, but any questions in the group, raise your hand. Or think about, we have one. There we go. We have Paul. Oh, we have two. Oh, crazy. Going all in for the stroopwafels. Paul, I'm going to ask you to unmute, and I'm going to bring you on the screen. There you go.
All right. Thank you. And I can't agree more than being a lifelong learner. You learn so much by reading, right? I forget the quote. I'm gonna hack it, but a blind man who can't read is no better off or no worse off than a man who won't read. Interesting approach. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
I'm dealing with some high volume mailers like you. And I know you, again, I've never been inside, but I think you just said you've got some webs in the back too. So you do some of that work.
We do.
Where is that? I don't want to have a number, but where is that crossover? And I know if you look at an iceberg, Frank, right? When me and my colleagues are out pitching our partnership and our equipment, what's your ink cost? What's this? What's that? What's this? And it's like such a minuscule portion of what you just described with enhanced UV and soft touch and sand. And there's so many other variables that are driving the cost per piece, if you will, or delivered mail.
Cost per piece.
For a mail owner, whoever the mail owner may be, and across different industries. But can you shed a little bit of light on, hey, insurance, you kind of indicated, I don't want to have a high touch point here or a high cost item here. Is it more travel and hospitality? Is it more bank high net worth people get this type of thing? Or what do you hear and see and feel out there?
So from a vertical market, just like I said, when you think about insurance, what works in the insurance world is your down and dirty number 10, right? Just a white wove envelope, no color, maybe just a little corner card. There are certain banks, as you mentioned here, that really go all in. The foil stocks, the enhanced UV, different textures on the envelope or the piece. But where I see a lot of money being spent is like your travel and leisure, like your cruise lines, for sure. We do a lot of that kind of work where they're beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful pieces coming off press. Retail, not so much. They seem to be struggling as a general sort of statement. We're doing a lot of redesign on the current formats, and that might be as simple as taking it from 10 7/8 down to 7 1/4, so we can get 3 out versus 2 out on a press, right? So, it really just depends on who you're talking to. What are they trying to achieve? And I don't know about you guys, but and unfortunately, it always does come down to price. But if you sell on price, you die on price, right? Because there's always going to be somebody cheaper. There's always going to be somebody that's 50 cents a thousand cheaper than you. So that's why, knowing the industry, knowing what they're trying to achieve, and understanding their pain points, and cycle time seems to be a huge pain point right now as well. And the reason I say that is data relevancy, right? So the longer that data sits before it's printed and mailed or imaged, it's stale, it's fatigued. So it's really, it's a great question. And you kind of, and I'm not sure I understand your question fully, but if I read into what you kind of said, Paul. So as an example, at one time we had 48 salespeople here at American Litho.
Wow.
We have 20 today. This is a very complex sell anymore. This is not just a print and mail. There's so many elements and components to direct mail, to include the technology and all of those solutions available. Not everybody gets it, right? Not everybody understands. And you also said something really important. Some are just not willing to learn. And why? I don't know, because it's still, for me, I love the business. And somebody just called me a direct mail geek again the other day. I'm like, okay, I'll own it. I'll take it. But you've got to understand what's going on in the market to effectively be that partner, right? And those that won't even pick up a book, what's the old saying? Readers are leaders, but not all leaders are readers, right? So it's important to pick up, and it doesn't have to be always about the business. I just read David Goggins' book. I don't know if you guys know who that is. You Can't Hurt Me. I highly recommend reading that book. Talk about mental toughness and getting through challenging. And look what we just came through these last 4 years. It's been more challenging in the last 4 years than the previous 25 that I've been doing this. Meaning, how do we move the needle, right? Does that help? I don't know if I answered your question or not, Paul.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, but thank you so much for that.
Sure.
Cool. Thanks, Paul. So let's bring on the next one. We have Francesca, and your mic is working, Francesca. So good for that. Go ahead, Francesca. Ask your question.
Hi, good morning, and hi, Frank. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, likewise.
Thank you. I had a quick question. You really got my curiosity with the geofencing, and I was wondering, obviously in your line of enterprise type of solution, it was probably an imperative technology to go for, but what do you think is the best data that you gather from the geofencing, and how precise can you get with it? Because I'm trying to think of where then does it go into the client's email when you're targeting the specific industries or the client, what you're necessarily looking for to make the most bang for the buck with each geofencing type of industry.
Sure. So the geofencing is based on longitude and latitude, so it's extremely accurate, very accurate. I think it's 3 meters, up to 3 meters. So if you put it around that house, any phone, any device, any laptop, tablet, etc., will be identified. It gets a little bit tricky though, because sometimes, and I'll give you an example. I am married and I have 3 daughters, not in the house anymore, but there was a time when I had 4 women in the house, right? So you put a geofence around my house, and let's just say it's Victoria's Secret because that's one of our clients. I'm probably not going to respond to that text message or that digital display ad, right? Generally speaking. So as an example, right? So you have to be very careful of the messages that you're pushing. So you're going to bounce that against the mail file. Who did I mail to? So it's a little bit tricky, but from an accuracy standpoint, it's very, very accurate. And again, depends on the type of service or product that you're selling in terms of what the message is, whether it's a digital display ad, whether it's a mobile text. But you can always track that back then if they hit the link, when they hit it, to then push another offer, whether it's an email or a text message or a digital display ad. Or, and the beauty of these digital presses, we also have a HP 100K in the back, is to capture that information, and you could pool it. It could be once a day, it could be once a week, it could be once a month, where we're really we're pulling down that information of who went to the site and generate a postcard to take them back to the site if they didn't take action, right? So there's a lot of moving pieces to the puzzle, but I would tell you it's very accurate, especially if you did your homework on the front end, meaning you built that predictive model, you scored on them appropriately. And it's a lot to learn. I had this great experience with this Scottish guy. His name was Ian at Pelican Water Systems in Florida. And when I tell you it was in the middle of nowhere, I thought I was lost. I alligators on the road, all that kind of stuff, But we got there, and he was telling me, he wanted to tell me what his best customers felt like and looked like. I'm like, well, let's put it to a test. Let's build a model. So he wanted to do all these things, identify people that just got through cancer or illness. You cannot share that kind of information, as you guys know, via HIPAA. But we learned a lot. He gave us his house file. We scored it. One of the things that he didn't know that we helped him identify what a best customer looks like, feels like, are those people that are in their homes right at that 15-year mark. Because as we all know, what happens in a home in 15 years, everything starts falling apart. So we were able to help them identify other data points or attributes to target. So I think if you can put all those pieces together, it seems to be a winning combination.
Thank you. And I think the analytics piece afterwards, when you can see if they've purchased and those things,
Yep.
I think that's sort of the brilliance in the whole project, because then that tells you whether you're saving your time. So thank you for that.
Yeah, sure.
Excellent. Thanks, Francesca. Good question. I see Rosemary lowered her hand, so you're no longer in for asking a question, Rosemary.
Well, I guess it was kind of answered by Frank already. I'm really intrigued by the data set. We don't do a lot of direct mail here at Blooming Color. And when we do, it's on a very small scale basis, usually just for some local nonprofits. And I was going to ask Frank, it sounds like the answer is no, but is there ever a time where when you're working with the client that you or they just kind of completely miss the mark, or is the data set so tight these days that really doesn't ever happen?
No, it happens, unfortunately. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, we just did a small project for a personal loan or debt consolidation company out on the West Coast. Small, let's see, I'm trying to think. We did 2 formats. One was 30,000 pieces, and the other was 15,000 pieces. Mm-hmm. They supplied the data. They didn't want us to get involved with any modeling or anything like that. And he's not real happy with the calls that it's generating. So he's strictly a print and get it into the mail. So we haven't seen a lot as it relates to success in that particular program. And I believe it was the data. I just don't think it was good data.
Sure. But had it run through your model, however, that might have been a different story.
I think it would have been a much better story. Absolutely. Not to be biased by any means, but
yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Frank.
Sure.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rosemary. We've got another question, Paul.
Yeah. Hey, Frank. Question. You talk a lot about mail, and mail is relevant, right? It could be a magazine. It could be a newsletter. It could be number 10 envelope. Beyond mail, are you guys doing catalog work? And how's the HP quality versus, and again, thanks for bringing up the 100K, but how's on the website? How are you doing with image quality on, I don't even know what you have. I know you have the wide webs, but the A2200, the wide web, and how does it fit compared to litho in some other applications besides letter envelope?
It's a great question. We do a lot of catalogs here, both offset and digital. So one of the and we haven't been successful yet, but I've had many conversations about producing what I call a dynamic catalog, meaning take those data points, again, going back to data, let's do a dynamic cover that is specific to the buying habits of that individual and make the body pages static. So it's more, again, going back to that target relevant messaging. Now, specific to catalogs, their postage is as a flat. If it's a flat, they are getting hammered. I don't even know how else to say it. That their postage costs are through the roof, and it's going to get worse for them in August. So a lot of those conversations right now, specific to catalogers, and let me answer your question. The quality coming off the HP presses is sometimes we got to bring it down because it looks so good compared to what's on the offset presses, right? You just can't get that same kind of quality. But what we're trying to achieve with our catalog customers and potential customers is how do we redesign that catalog where it's a Slim Jim or a 6x9 piece, a digest type piece, where we can help them move from flat postage to letter rate postage. That's probably the biggest challenge in that segment of the business.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Thank you, Paul. So we are getting to the top of the hour, Frank. So I'm going to wrap up. But
okay.
The challenge now for you is to identify who is one with the best question now, and then I will send those stroopwafels over. So you've got a few strong candidates. You have to choose.
I think I just have to say, because you said Amerilytics and you said the data, Francesca, that was a great question. That would be my no offense to anybody else, but that was an excellent question.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks everyone else for asking the question. Francesca, the stroopwafels will come your way. And then before we go, okay, just everyone knows the replay will be made available pretty soon on the platform. A big thank you to Frank, who I will now gratefully call the direct mail geek. You are definitely qualified and certified in that space. Right. thanks so much for sharing your opinions and perspectives. I mean, it was very insightful, even for me, as not being a printer by nature, but a lot of interesting stuff to share. Thank you all for participating. See you in Indy. See you on the Dscoop platform. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much, Frank, and really appreciate you. And
Thanks,
see you in a
guys.
couple of weeks.
Looking forward to it.
Take care,
Thank
everyone.
you. Have a great day. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.